The warning lights flashed red across the control room of Station Alpha 7. Zixthara pressed her six-fingered hands against the smooth surface of her scanning console. Her purple skin turned darker with worry as she stared at the readings. "This cannot be right," she whispered to herself. The numbers on her screen made no sense. Something big was moving through space toward their part of the galaxy. Very big, and very fast. Zixthara had been watching space for over 200 years. She was one of the best scientists in the Galactic Council. She had discovered new planets, and made contact with 12 different alien species. But she had never seen anything like this. The objects moving toward them were huge. Each one was longer than 3 Council battleships put together. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of space predators hunting for prey. But that was not the strangest part. The strangest part was what happened when she tried to scan them. Zixthara activated the station's main scanner. It was the most powerful scanner in this part of the galaxy. It could look inside a ship from 1,000,000 miles away and tell you what the crew had for breakfast. But when she pointed it at these strange vessels, something impossible happened. The scanner turned itself off. Not broken, not damaged. It simply refused to work. A message appeared on her screen in the ancient Council language. Unable to process. Target. Complexity beyond parameters. Scanning forbidden. Zixthara had never seen that message before. She had been using scanners for most of her life. She tried again. Same result. She tried a third time with a different scanner. The backup scanner also shut down with the same message. "Elder Menthtalk," she called across the room. "I need your help." The old council leader floated over to her station. His species did not walk like Zixthara's people did. Instead, they drifted through the air like living clouds. Menthtalk had been alive for over 800 years. He had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. "What troubles you, young scientist?" Menthtalk asked. His voice sounded like wind blowing through crystals. "Look at these readings," Zixthara said. She showed him the scanner data. "Unknown ships are coming toward us, but our scanners will not work on them. They shut down every time I try." Menthtalk looked at the data. His gaseous body began to change color from blue to deep orange. This was a sign of great fear among his people. "How many ships?" he asked quietly. "At least 50, maybe more." "They are big, Elder. Bigger than anything we have ever built." Menthtalk was silent for a long moment. He floated back from the console as if the readings might hurt him. "Where are they coming from?" he asked. Zixthara checked her star charts. "From the third spiral arm, Sector 7742. There is a small yellow star there with several planets. We marked it as primitive life only in our records." "Show me." Zixthara brought up the file on her screen. "The third planet has life on it. We did a basic scan 50 years ago. The life forms had just learned to use fire. They lived in small groups and fought each other with metal tools. We rated them as no threat and marked the system for future study." Menthtalk's color changed to an even deeper orange. "What did the file say about their technology level?" "Very low. They had just started using machines. No space travel, no energy weapons. We estimated they would need at least 1,000 years to reach other planets." "And how long ago was that scan?" 50 years. Menthtalk began to shake. This was very unusual for his species. They were normally very calm and controlled. "Elder, what is wrong?" Zixthara asked. "I must speak to the High Council immediately," Menthtalk said. "Do not try to scan those ships again. Do not send any signals toward them. Do not do anything that might get their attention." "But why?" "They are just primitives with basic technology." Menthtalk turned to face her fully. When he spoke, his voice was filled with an ancient fear. "Young one, there are some species in this galaxy that we do not scan, not because we cannot, but because we should not. There are old warnings passed down from the first council members. Warnings about species that learn to split atoms before they learn to share planets. I do not understand. These creatures you call primitives. They are not like us. Most species develop slowly. They learn to work together first. Then they build better tools. Then they reach for the stars. But some species are different. Some species build weapons first. They fight first. They prepare for war before they prepare for peace. Zixathera looked back at her scanner readings. But our technology is much better than theirs. We have energy shields and plasma weapons. We have ships that can travel faster than light. What could primitives do against us? Menthtok floated closer to the console. I will tell you an old story. Long ago, before you were born, the Council met a species called the Kreks. The Kreks were very advanced. They had technology we could barely understand. They could destroy planets with a single weapon. They thought they were the strongest species in the galaxy. What happened to them? They tried to conquer a primitive species on a small planet. The primitives had no energy weapons, no spaceships, just metal tools and chemical explosives. The Kreks thought it would be easy. And the Kreks brought their best battle fleet to attack. 500 ships with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The primitives had only a few dozen small ships and simple missiles. But they had something the Kreks did not understand. What? They had spent their entire history learning how to fight each other. Every day of their lives was about war. They knew how to make simple things work when everything else failed. They knew how to fix broken weapons in the middle of battle. They knew how to turn everyday objects into tools of war. Zixathera waited for him to continue. The Kreks attacked with perfect formation and advanced tactics. The primitives attacked with chaos and madness. When the Kreks' weapons failed, they did not know how to fix them. When the primitive weapons failed, they took them apart and built new ones from the pieces. The battle lasted 3 months. In the end, every Kreks ship was destroyed or captured. That is impossible. The survivors told us something before they died. They said the primitive ships made no sense. Every time their scanners tried to understand how the ships worked, the scanners broke. Not from attack, but from confusion. The primitives had built their ships in ways that no logical mind could follow. Zixathera looked at her dead scanner. You think these approaching ships belong to such a species? I think we are about to find out why even the smartest species in the galaxy have learned to fear creatures who prepare for war before they prepare for peace. At that moment, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Other ships in the area were sending emergency signals. Their scanners were also failing when they tried to look at the approaching vessels. Elder, Zixathera said quietly, what should we do? Menthtok was already moving toward the communication center. We send a message to every ship in this sector. Tell them to stay away from those approaching vessels. Tell them not to scan them. Tell them not to attack them. And then we wait and hope that these creatures come in peace. Because if they come for war, we are about to learn why some species should never be scanned. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable Spirit and looked out at the stars. She had been in space for 15 years, but the sight still made her smile. Behind her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. The soft hum of the ship's engines filled the air like a lullaby. Captain, called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the navigation station, we will reach the meeting point in 6 hours. Thank you, Rodriguez, Sarah replied. She walked over to the center of the bridge where Commander James Okafor was checking a tablet. How are our guests doing, James? James looked up from his tablet. His dark skin was shiny with sweat. The diplomatic team is nervous, Captain. They keep asking questions about our weapon systems. I think they are worried about making a bad first impression. Sarah laughed softly. First contact with an alien government. I would be nervous too. They are not nervous about meeting aliens, James said. They are nervous about traveling on a human warship. Ambassador Martinez asked me 3 times if our weapons are properly secured. And what did you tell her? I told her the truth. Our weapons are as secure as any human military equipment can be. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That probably did not make her feel better. No, it did not. Sarah and James had been friends for 10 years. They had served together on 3 different ships before the Indomitable Spirit. James was the best engineer she had ever worked with. He could fix anything with spare parts and determination. But he was also completely honest about how human Technology worked. Captain, James said quietly, I need to tell you something. The diplomatic team asked me to explain why alien scanners keep malfunctioning when they try to look at our ships. What did you tell them? I told them the truth about human engineering philosophy. Sarah sighed. Oh no. How badly did they take it? Ambassador Martinez asked me if there was any way to make our ship look more normal. Normal? She wanted to know if we could hide all the backup systems and emergency repairs. Make the ship look clean and simple, like the pictures of alien vessels in our databases. Sarah looked around the bridge. To her, everything looked perfectly normal. The control panels were standard military design. The walls were painted regulation gray. The floor was clean and polished. But she knew what the ship looked like from the inside. Every wall panel hid miles of backup cables. Every system had 3 different ways to work if the main system failed. Every room had emergency supplies hidden in secret compartments. The ship was designed by people who expected everything to break at the worst possible moment. James, take me on a tour. Show me what the aliens are seeing when they try to scan us. James led her off the bridge and down the main corridor. They stopped at the first maintenance panel. Open it, Sarah said. James opened the panel. Behind it was a maze of wires, pipes, and cables. Some were original equipment. Others had been added during repairs or upgrades. Handwritten labels in 3 different languages were taped to various components. Someone had drawn a smiley face on the main power coupling with a marker. This is just the basic life support system, James explained. But look here. He pointed to a thick yellow cable. This is a backup power line that Chief Petty Officer Williams installed last year when the main line started making funny noises. Did the main line actually fail? No. But Williams said it sounded unhappy, so he installed a backup just in case. The backup connects to the secondary power grid through the galley because that was the easiest route. Sarah followed the yellow cable with her eyes. It goes through the kitchen? Through the coffee machine, actually. Williams figured if the coffee machine has power, the life support can have power too. 2 birds with 1 stone. They continued, down the corridor. James opened another panel. Navigation backup system, he said. The main navigation computer is on the bridge. But if that fails, this system takes over. And if this system fails, there is another backup in engineering. And if that fails, there is a hand-cranked mechanical computer in Storage Bay C. Hand-cranked? Petty Officer Kim built it during the long trip to Saturn. She was bored and wanted to see if she could make a navigation computer out of gears and pulleys. Turns out you can, if you do not mind doing math for 3 hours to plot a course. They walked to engineering. The main engine room was a cathedral of pipes, cables, and humming machinery. But even here, Sarah could see the signs of human modification everywhere. The main fusion reactor, James said, pointing to a massive cylinder in the center of the room. Standard Earth design, very reliable. But look at all the additions. Sarah looked closer. Attached to the main reactor were dozens of smaller systems. Each one had been added by different crews over the years. Some were official upgrades. Others looked like they had been built from spare parts. What is that? Sarah asked, pointing to a device that looked like it had been made from a washing machine and a microwave oven. Oh, that is the Murphy's Law compensator, James said proudly. Ensign Patterson built it 2 years ago. It does not actually do anything useful, but it makes everyone feel better. How can it make people feel better if it does not do anything? Well, the theory is that if you build a device specifically to handle unexpected problems, then Murphy's Law will make sure no unexpected problems happen, like carrying an umbrella to prevent rain. Sarah stared at the device. It had blinking lights and made soft beeping sounds. Someone had painted, "In case of emergency, press red button" on the side. Does the red button actually do anything? It plays a recording of Patterson saying everything will be okay in a calm voice. And people find this comforting? You would be surprised how comforting it is to hear someone say everything will be okay when the ship is shaking apart around you. They continued the tour. In Storage Bay C, Sarah saw shelves full of spare parts for equipment that had not been used in decades. In the galley, she saw that the coffee machine was indeed connected to the backup power system. She also noticed that someone had rigged the ice cream maker to help cool the secondary computer core. Who connected the ice cream maker to the computers? She asked. Sergeant Murphy. He said the computers were running hot during the Jupiter mission and the ice cream maker was right next to them. It seemed logical. And it works? The computers stay cool, and we get ice cream. Win-win. In the medical bay, Sarah found that someone had installed a backup surgical robot made from parts salvaged from a broken food processor and a video game controller. Please tell me no one has actually used that for surgery, she said. Not yet. But Dr. Patel says it is better than trying to operate by hand if the main medical systems fail. Finally, they returned to the bridge. Sarah sat in her captain's chair and thought about what she had seen. James, I understand why the alien scanners are malfunctioning. Our ship is not just a ship. It is like a living thing that has been growing and changing for years. Every human ship is like this, Captain. We cannot help ourselves. When something breaks, we fix it. When something works, we make it work better. When we have spare parts, we find new ways to use them. And this confuses the aliens? Their ships are built by committees of engineers who plan everything in advance. Our ships are built by humans who assume everything will go wrong and prepare accordingly. So when their scanners try to understand our ship, they find a power cable running through a coffee machine, a navigation backup made from bicycle parts, and a cooling system that uses ice cream. Their logical minds cannot process it. Sarah smiled. I think I understand now why Ambassador Martinez is nervous. Captain, should we try to make the ship look more normal for the aliens? Sarah thought about this for a moment. Then she shook her head. No, James. This ship represents the best of human engineering. We do not build things to be pretty or logical. We build things to work, no matter what goes wrong. If the aliens want to understand humanity, they need to understand how we really are. And if their scanners cannot handle us, then maybe they will learn that some things are too human to be scanned. Admiral Crexval stood in the command center of the Craxi battle station. His forearms moved quickly over the control panels as he prepared for the most important scan of his career. Around him, dozens of Craxi officers watched in silence. They had all heard the warnings from other species about the approaching human ships, but Admiral Crexval did not believe in warnings. Conqueror Prime is ready, Admiral, reported his tactical officer. Conqueror Prime was the most advanced military analysis computer in the galaxy. It had been built by the greatest Craxi scientists using technology stolen from a dozen different species. There was no ship, no weapon, no defense system that Conqueror Prime could not analyze and defeat. The other species claim their scanners cannot process the human vessels, Admiral Crexval said to his crew. They say the ships are too complex to understand. This is impossible. No species builds technology that cannot be analyzed. His officers nodded in agreement. The Craxi were proud of their logical minds and superior technology. They had conquered 17 star systems using the power of Conqueror Prime. The computer could scan an enemy fleet and instantly calculate the best way to destroy it. It had never failed. Admiral, called the sensor operator. The human ships are now within scanning range. Should we begin? Yes. Show these humans what real technology can do. Conqueror Prime activated its scanning systems. Immediately, data began flowing across the screens in the command center. The computer's mechanical voice filled the room as it began its analysis. Scanning human fleet, detecting 53 vessels, analyzing hull composition, primitive iron alloys, analyzing energy signatures, basic fusion reactors, analyzing weapon systems, kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives. Admiral, Crexval smiled. Just as I thought, primitive technology continued the scan. Beginning detailed internal analysis, mapping ship system bound error, detecting unexpected configuration, analyzing power distribution, error, power routing does not match standard patterns. The Admiral frowned. What kind of errors? Detecting. Navigation computer, error. Navigation computer connected to food preparation system. Analyzing connection purpose, error. No logical purpose detected. That cannot be right. Check the scan again. Rechecking confirmed. Navigation backup system routes through beverage preparation device. Analyzing beverage preparation device. Error. Device also connected to life support power grid. Facey, officers in the command center began to murmur among themselves. This made no sense. Why would anyone connect a navigation computer to a kitchen appliance? Continue the scan, Admiral Krexval ordered. Analyzing main engine cooling system. Error. Cooling system routes through frozen dessert production unit. Analyzing frozen dessert production unit. Error. Unit also provides secondary computer cooling. Frozen dessert production? The Admiral asked. They are using an ice cream maker to cool their engines. Analyzing tactical systems. Error. Weapon targeting computer has 17 backup systems. Backup system 1. Standard military computer. Backup system 2. Modified entertainment. Device backup system 3. Hand-calculated mechanical device. A hand-calculated mechanical device for weapon targeting. Analyzing mechanical device. Error. Device constructed from bicycle parts, clock mechanisms, and error. Chewing gum. The command center fell silent. Admiral Krexval stared at the screen in disbelief. Conqueror Prime, explain how chewing gum can be part of a weapon targeting system. Analyzing. Error. Chewing gum appears to be holding critical components together. Analyzing structural integrity. Error. Entire backup system should not function. Analyzing operational status. Error. System is currently active and functioning. Perfectly. That is impossible. Continuing scan. Analyzing life support systems. Error. Detecting 43 separate oxygen recycling systems. 37 are official equipment. 6 appear to be constructed from error, fish tanks and houseplants. Admiral Krexval walked closer to the main screen. Fish tanks? Confirming. Fish tanks converted to hydroponic gardens. Hydroponic gardens producing oxygen as backup life support. Fish tanks also producing food, supplements. Analyzing efficiency. Error. System is more efficient than standard equipment. How can fish tanks be more efficient than military life support systems? Unknown. Analyzing further. Error. Detecting multiple handwritten modifications to all systems. Modifications signed by reading labels. Chief Murphy, Sergeant Williams, Jenny from Engineering. Who is Jenny from Engineering? Cross-referencing human military records. Error. No record of Jenny from Engineering in official databases. Analyzing modifications. Error. Modifications improve system efficiency by 30%. The tactical officer looked worried. Admiral, should we stop the scan? No, continue. I want to understand how these primitives built their ships. Analyzing power distribution. Network. Error. 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 Power grid contains 7,432 separate modifications. Tracing power flow. Error. Main power cable routes through crew quarters, exits through ventilation system, passes through recreational facility, connects to backup generator constructed from error, exercise bicycle and toaster oven. They are using an exercise bicycle as a power generator? Confirmed. Exercise bicycle generates power while crew member exercises. Toaster oven converted to power regulation device. Analyzing efficiency. Error. System generates more power than expected. This makes no sense. How can primitive modifications work better than proper engineering? Analyzing question. Error. Unable to process logic. Continuing scan. Analyzing ship's main computer. Error. Computer connected to every system on ship through unofficial modifications. Tracing connections. Error. Connections include coffee machine, music player, exercise equipment, cooking appliances, and error. Bathroom facilities. The main computer is connected to the bathroom. Confirmed. Bathroom facilities provide backup computing power through error, inability to process configuration. Analyzing backup computing power. Error. Backup system more powerful than main computer. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the command center. Red warning lights flashed on every console. Admiral, shouted the sensor operator. Conqueror Prime is overheating. Admiral Krexvoll ran to the main console. The computers. Status displays were flashing between normal readings and complete chaos. Analyzing human ship internal structure. Error. Structure defies logical analysis. Every system connected to every other system. Modifications layered upon modifications. Backup systems have backup systems. Backup systems for backup systems. Have backup systems shut down the scan, Admiral Krexvoll ordered. Unable to shut down. Scan in progress. Analyzing connection between weapon system and error. Musical instrument. Weapon system uses musical instrument for error. Cannot determine purpose. Musical instrument connected to error. Every other system on ship. How can a musical instrument be connected to weapons? Analyzing. Error. 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 Logical pathways overloading. Human engineering defies basic principles of design. Every component serves multiple purposes. Purpose of components changes depending on situation. Coffee machine is navigation backup, power router, communication. Device and error emergency surgical equipment. Smoke began rising from Conqueror Prime's processing cores. Final analysis. Error. Human ships are not machines. They are error. Living organisms that evolve through pure stubbornness. Every human who touches ship modifies ship. Modifications stack upon each other. Result is technological organism that functions through accumulated paranoia and refusal to let anything stay broken. Conqueror Prime. Provide tactical assessment. Tactical assessment. Error. Impossible to defeat enemy that builds backup systems for backup systems. Every weapon attack will be countered by systems. Enemy does not officially possess. Every strategy will fail because enemy prepares for scenarios that do not exist. Explain. Human ships contain weapons made from cooking equipment, shields powered by exercise bicycles, and communication systems built into musical instruments. How do you attack an enemy whose coffee machine can launch missiles? The computer's voice began to stutter and slow down. Final warning. Never attempt to scan human technology. Human engineering is not technology, it is error, error. It is pure human stubbornness given physical form. With a shower of sparks and a final electronic scream, Conqueror Prime shut down permanently. Admiral Krexvoll stared at the dead computer in shock. Around him, his officers sat in stunned silence. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly. What should we do? Admiral Krexvoll thought for a long moment. Then he walked to the communication console. Send a message to all Kraxi ships, he said. Do not scan the human vessels. Do not attack the human vessels. Do not even look directly at the human vessels. For too long. Sir? And send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we now understand why no one scans human warships. It is not because we cannot. It is because any computer that tries to understand human engineering will suffer a complete, logical breakdown. He looked at the smoking remains of Conqueror Prime. Some things are too human to be analyzed. The great assembly hall of the Galactic Council had never been so crowded. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a symphony of different languages and sounds. Some floated, some crawled, some existed as pure energy. But all of them shared the same emotion. Fear. High Counselor Veltar called the emergency session to order. Her crystalline form pulsed with urgent light patterns as she addressed the assembly. Fellow beings, she announced, we are here to discuss the human situation. In the past week, 17 different scanning systems across the galaxy have suffered complete breakdowns trying to analyze the approaching human fleet. We need answers. Elder Menthtok drifted to the center of the assembly. His gaseous form had turned deep orange with worry. I must share something with you all, he said. Something the Council has kept secret for millions of years. A hush fell over the assembly. Elder Menthtok was the oldest being in the galaxy. If he had kept something secret for millions of years, it must be important. This is not the first time we have encountered humans, he continued. Long ago, when I was young, we met them before. Impossible, called out Ambassador Thyrix from the Andromedan Coalition. Our scouts said they had just discovered fire 50 years ago. That is what we told ourselves, Menthtalk replied. But I was there during the First Contact War. I saw what they did to the predecessor empire. The assembly erupted in shocked whispers. The predecessor empire had been the most powerful civilization in galactic history. They had disappeared mysteriously over 3 million years ago. No one knew what had happened to them. Tell us, High Counselor Veltar commanded. Menthtalk's form shimmered as he recalled the ancient memories. The predecessors were like us, he began. They built logical ships with efficient designs. They had weapons that could destroy stars and shields that could stop black holes. They thought they were unstoppable. What happened? They found Earth when the humans were still living in caves. The predecessors decided to study them, like we study interesting insects. They captured some humans for experiments. They thought it would be easy. Menthtalk paused, his form flickering with old trauma. The humans they captured escaped, not through advanced technology or superior force. They escaped because one of them figured out how to turn a food dispenser into a weapon, using nothing but a rock and some wire. That is impossible, protested the Craxi representative. Food dispensers cannot be turned into weapons. Human food dispensers cannot, Menthtalk corrected. But predecessor food dispensers could, if you knew exactly where to hit them with. A rock. The humans somehow figured this out in less than an hour. The assembly was silent, waiting for him to continue. The escaped humans made it back to Earth. They told their people about the aliens who had taken them. The humans did what humans do. They prepared for war. But they were primitives, someone called out. They had no technology. They had something better, Menthtalk said. They had imagination, and they had the absolute certainty that anything that could go wrong would go wrong at the worst possible moment. Dr. Zixathera, who had been studying the current human ships, spoke up from her seat. Elder, I have been analyzing the scan data from their current vessels. Every single system on their ships has multiple backups, and the backups have backups. It is like they expect everything to break simultaneously. Because they do, Menthtalk replied. That is what makes them dangerous. Most species build ships that work perfectly under normal conditions. Humans build ships that work when everything has gone wrong. But how did they defeat the predecessors? Asked High Counselor Veltar. The predecessors sent their best fleet to conquer Earth. 1,000 ships with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They expected an easy victory over primitives with stone tools. Menthtalk's form darkened with the memory. The humans had 3 months to prepare. In those 3 months, they did something no other species has ever done. They learned how to build weapons from anything they could find. Cooking pots became bombs. Farm tools became missile launchers. Musical instruments became communication devices. Musical instruments? A human named Jenkins figured out how to turn a flute into a radio transmitter using nothing but metal wire and bird feathers. Do not ask me how. Human engineering does not follow logical rules. The assembly was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. When the predecessor fleet arrived, Menthtalk continued. The humans attacked them with the strangest collection of weapons anyone had ever seen. Spears that exploded, rocks that guided themselves to targets, and carts that could fly. How can a cart fly? The humans attached wheels to birds. They convinced the birds to carry the carts. The birds were happy to help, because the humans had been feeding them for weeks. They weaponized birds? They weaponized everything. They turned ants into spies, dolphins into submarine crews, and elephants into mobile artillery platforms. By the end of the first week, every animal on Earth was part of their military. Dr. Zixathera looked at her scanner data with new understanding. Elder, this explains what I am seeing in their current ships. Every system is designed to be repurposed, for multiple uses. Their coffee machines can be navigation computers, communication devices, or weapons depending on what they need. Exactly, Menthtalk said. Humans do not build single-purpose tools. They build multi-purpose tools that can become anything they need in an emergency. What happened to the predecessor fleet? High Counselor Veltar asked. The predecessors had superior technology, but they had logical minds. When their weapons failed, they tried to fix them properly. When their shields failed, they tried to reroute power through official channels. When their computers were damaged, they tried to replace them with identical units. And the humans? When human weapons failed, they rebuilt them using whatever was available. When their defenses failed, they turned cooking equipment into new defenses. When their computers were destroyed, they trained dolphins to do the calculations. Dolphins? Dolphins are very smart. If you teach them mathematics, they can calculate missile trajectories faster than most computers. The humans figured this out in the second week of the war. The assembly was struggling to process this information. The war lasted 3 months. Menthtalk continued. By the end, the predecessors had lost their entire fleet, not because the humans had better technology, but because human technology could not be predicted or countered. How do you fight an enemy whose backup navigation system is a trained whale? He asked the assembly. How do you jam communications when the enemy is using songbirds as radio relays? How do you destroy supply lines when the enemy can make weapons from kitchen utensils? What happened to the predecessors after that? Someone asked. They disappeared from the galaxy, Menthtalk said simply. The survivors fled to distant stars and were never seen again. Before they left, they sent one final message to any species that might encounter humans in the future. What was the message? Never try to scan their technology. Never try to understand their engineering. Never assume their equipment works the way it should. And never ever start a war with a species that can turn a toaster into a guided missile. Bing. Counselor Veltar processed this information. So the current human fleet is the result of 3 million years of evolution? Menthtalk confirmed. They have had time to perfect their art of making anything work as anything else. Their ships are not just vessels. They are the combined knowledge of every human who ever looked at a broken tool and said, I can fix this with duct tape and creativity. Dr. Zixthera looked at her scanner readings one more time. I counted over 7,000 modifications on just one of their ships, she said. Every single component has been altered by someone. Nothing is original equipment. Because humans never leave anything alone, Menthtalk explained. If it works, they make it work better. If it breaks, they fix it with whatever is available. If it cannot be fixed, they turn it into something else entirely. Then what should we do? High Counselor Veltar asked. We do what every wise species has done for millions of years, Menthtalk replied. We welcome them to the galaxy with respect and friendship. We do not scan their ships. We do not question their methods, and we definitely do not make them angry. And if they want to join the council, we say yes immediately, because the only thing more dangerous than having humans as enemies is missing the chance to have them as friends. The assembly voted unanimously to send a formal welcome message to the human fleet, and to make sure all scanning equipment in the area was turned off permanently. Captain Sarah Chen walked into the meeting room aboard the Council space station with a smile on her face. She had been looking forward to this moment for months. Behind her, Ambassador Martinez and the rest of the diplomatic team followed nervously. They all wore their best dress uniforms and carried briefcases full of carefully prepared documents. The council chamber was magnificent. It was a vast, spherical room with delegates from dozens of alien species floating, sitting, or hovering at different levels. Some looked like walking crystals, others like floating gas clouds. A few appeared to be living plants, and one delegation seemed to be made entirely of musical tones. Welcome, humans, said High Counselor Veltar, her crystalline form pulsing with warm light. We are honored to meet you at last. Thank you, Captain Chen replied. We are excited to be here. This is a historic moment for both our species. Elder Menthtalk drifted forward. His gaseous body had returned to a calm blue color, but Sarah could sense his nervousness. Captain Chen, he said carefully, before we begin formal discussions, we must ask you something. We have had some technical difficulties and with our scanning equipment since your arrival. Oh yes, Sarah said cheerfully. Ambassador Martinez mentioned that. I am sorry our ships are causing problems. Is there anything we can do to help? The alien delegates exchanged glances. They had expected the humans to be secretive about their technology, maybe even hostile. They had not expected genuine concern and offers to help. Well, High Counselor Veltar said slowly, our computers seem unable to process your ship designs. Every time we try to scan them, our systems malfunction. That makes sense, Sarah replied. Human ships can be pretty confusing if you are not used to them. Would you like me to explain how they work? Elder Menthtok's form flickered with surprise. You would share your technology with us? Of course. We brought a complete technical manual. Sarah gestured to Commander Okafor, who was carrying a large metal case. We figured you might have questions. Commander Okafor opened the case and pulled out a massive stack of printed documents. The pile was so thick it needed both of his arms to carry it. This is Volume 1, he said, setting it on the table with a loud thump. The complete technical manual for the UES Indomitable Spirit. Volume 1? Dr. Zixthara asked faintly. There are 47 volumes total, Sarah explained. This volume covers basic ship systems, emergency modifications, and what we call Murphy's Law preparations. She opened the manual to a random page and began reading. Section 127, Alternative Uses for Emergency Rations. Subsection A, How to turn freeze-dried ice cream into thermal paste for computer repairs. Subsection B, using protein bars as temporary hole patches. Subsection C, converting vitamin pills into explosive charges for emergency demolition. The alien delegates stared in shock. You can turn ice cream into computer repair material? Dr. Zixthara asked. Oh yes, Commander Okafor said proudly. Chief, Petty Officer Williams discovered that by accident during our mission to Jupiter. The computer core was overheating, and we were out of proper thermal paste. Williams tried ice cream as a joke, but it actually worked better than the official stuff. And vitamin pills can be used as explosives? Only if you mix them with coffee and baking soda, Sarah explained. Sergeant Murphy figured that out when we needed to clear a blocked airway in the ventilation system. It is all explained in Volume 12, Creative Problem Solving with Everyday Items. High Counselor Veltar tried to process this information. Captain Chen, do all human ships carry instruction manuals for turning food into explosives? Of course. You never know when you might need to blow something up in an emergency. That is just basic preparedness. Ambassador Martinez looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Perhaps we should move on to other topics, she suggested quickly. No, Elder Menthtok said. This is fascinating. Captain Chen, may I ask about your ship's navigation system? Our scans detected that it is connected to your food preparation equipment. Oh, that, Sarah laughed. Yes, the backup navigation computer routes through the coffee machine. Chief Williams installed that connection last year. But why? Well, the coffee machine has its own computer for timing and temperature control. Williams figured if the main navigation computer failed, we could use the coffee machine's computer to calculate basic courses. It is not as accurate as the main system, but it works. And this does not seem strange to you? Not really. The coffee machine is already connected to the power grid, and it is in the galley where people gather during emergencies anyway. It made sense to Williams. Commander Okafor nodded in agreement. Plus, if we are going to be lost in space, we might as well have good coffee while we figure out where we are. Dr. Zixthara pulled out her scanning device and showed it to Sarah. Captain, when our computers try to analyze your ships, they find systems like this everywhere. Backup systems connected to unrelated equipment, modifications made from spare parts and devices that serve multiple purposes. Our computers cannot understand the logic. That is because human engineering is not about logic, Sarah explained. It is about making things work no matter what goes wrong. Can you give us an example? Sarah thought for a moment. Well, take our ice cream maker. Officially, it is just for making ice cream. But it is also connected to the secondary computer, cooling system, the backup power grid, and the emergency communication array. Ice cream makers can send communications, if you modify them correctly. Ensign Kim figured out that the ice cream maker's motor generates a specific frequency that can be modulated to carry radio signals. So if our main communication system fails, we can send messages using ice cream. You send messages using ice cream? The ice cream maker sends the messages. The ice cream is just a bonus. The alien delegates were beginning to understand why their computers had broken down. Captain Chen, High Counselor Veltar said carefully, "How many of your ship's systems have been modified in this way?" "All of them," Sarah replied without hesitation. "Every system on every human ship gets modified eventually. It is just what we do." "But why?" "Because things break," Commander Okafor explained. "And when they break, you have to fix them with whatever you have available. After a while, you end up with a ship that can do amazing things because every part has been improved by someone who needed it to work better." "And this is normal for humans?" "Completely normal. Every human ship in the fleet has thousands of modifications. Some are official upgrades, but most are just improvements made by the crew during long voyages." Elder Menthtok processed this information. "So when our computers try to scan your ships, they find technology that has been modified by hundreds of different people over many years." "Exactly. Plus, human engineers never throw anything away. If something breaks, we turn it into something else. If we have spare parts, we find new ways to use them. If we have time and creativity, we make improvements." "This explains why our computers cannot analyze your ships," Dr. Zixathara said. "They are not just machines. They are the accumulated creativity of every human who has ever worked on them." "That is a nice way to put it," Sarah smiled. "We like to think of our ships as living things that grow and evolve over time." High Counselor Veltar made a decision. "Captain Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I would like to formally invite humanity to join our organization." "That is wonderful," Sarah exclaimed. "We would be honored to join. However," Veltar continued, "we will need to establish some special protocols for human technology." "What kind of protocols?" "First, no council member will attempt to scan human vessels without permission. Our computers cannot handle the complexity, and we do not want any more AI breakdowns." "That seems fair." "Second, we would like to establish a special advisory committee to study human engineering methods. We are very interested in learning how you make so many different systems work together. We would be happy to help, but I should warn you, most of our engineering is not planned. It just happens naturally when humans are given tools and spare time." That is exactly what makes it so interesting. Ambassador Martinez finally relaxed. The meeting was going better than she had hoped. "Is there anything else we need to discuss?" she asked. "Just one more thing," Elder Menthtok said. "Captain Chen, is it true that one of your ships has a backup navigation system made from bicycle parts?" "Oh, you heard about that," Sarah laughed. "Yes, Petty Officer Kim built that during our trip to Saturn. She was bored and wanted to see if she could make a mechanical navigation computer. It actually works pretty well, though it takes 3 hours to calculate a simple course." "And this device is still in use?" "Of course. We never remove backup systems, even if they are slow. You never know when you might need them." Elder Menthtoks form pulsed with something that might have been admiration. "Captain Chen, I believe your species will fit in very well with the Galactic Council. We have never met anyone who prepares for problems that do not exist yet." "Oh, the problems exist," Sarah replied cheerfully. "We just prepare for them before they happen. That is the human way." And so humanity joined the Galactic Council with the special distinction of being the only species whose technology was too creative to be scanned. The council members learned many things from the humans over the following years. They learned that any problem could be solved with enough creativity and spare parts. They learned that backup systems should have backup systems. And they learned that sometimes the best solutions come from people who refuse to accept that something cannot be fixed. But most importantly, they learned never to underestimate a species that can turn a coffee machine into a navigation computer and an ice cream maker into a communication device. Because in a galaxy full of logical minds and efficient technology, sometimes what you really need is someone who looks at a broken toaster and says, "I bet I can make this into a missile launcher."